There's Dr. Jerome Corsi. This is Friday. It's December 6th, 2024. Thank you for joining us on thetruthcentral.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. If you'll follow us on X, you can follow us at Corsi Jerome 1 on Substack, with JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. And we are building a good list of readers, and we're going to continue trying to put out Substacks every day. The further updates subscribe to our channel for further updates on thetruthcentral.com. We're going to be making some changes in 2025, and I think it'll be very favorable changes to upgrade the status of the program and my platform altogether. Gods5stones.com, G-O-D, no apostrophe to the S, F-I-V-E, spelled out completely. The numbers spelled out. Stones is plural. Gods5stones.com. It refers to the David and Goliath story, of course, where David picks 5 smooth stones from a brook to go after Goliath. He picks the right 5 stones. And that QR code you can use right there to donate to God's 5 Stones. We're continuing the foundation. We're going to provide our information to the Trump team, who is looking at the voter fraud issue very deeply. And I think you're going to see some really important developments come out of this once after the inauguration occurs, when the administration gets in place. Trump administration is making some very good strides and quick strides to put a team in place that I think is going to hopefully dismantle the deep state and break up the agency dominance, this bureaucratic state, which is, I think, completely antithetic to any principles of our Constitution. The bureaucracy is not mentioned anywhere in the Constitution, yet the bureaucracy makes laws and runs the government. I'd move the entire bureaucracy out to Death Valley and let them have all the solar and wind they want. They can drive around in their electric cars. They don't need any hydrocarbon fuels because they don't like it. So they can do fine in Quonset huts with wind and solar if that's what they want to do. If they're dedicated to serve the government, they'll move. Got to break up this cozy little Beltway, Georgetown coffee house, anti-American, neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism that has dominated the left. The Democratic Party has become a communist party. Might as well just call it the Communist Party. They're not Democrats anymore. They're communists. And they're verging on being a treason party. Now, I'm going to cover a couple of stories here on this. Number one, this interesting story about this David Hogg. And Chris, why don't you give us some background on David Hogg? And we're going to play a clip from him. But if the Democratic Party is going to be having David Hogg as its chair of the DNC, they might as well put a sign out in front of the DNC building in Washington, D.C. and say, closed for obsolescence, closed for relevancy, closed for treason. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, I think it would be just perfect for the Democrats, because this guy is what they are. He's an opportunist who took advantage of the Parkland school shooting tragedy. I believe he's the son of an FBI agent, but he wasn't even anywhere near what happened, but he took advantage of it, became the face of the whole thing, and used it to push this whole anti-gun movement.
So he's the Greta of the gun movement, right?
He's the Greta of the gun movement, but I believe he had more ulterior motives. Well, Greta's plan was dictated by her parents.
And her wallet.
Right, and her wallet, and of course the patriarchy. David Hogg is part that, but he wants to gain power. He wanted to be a congressman. He wants to use this to advance his fame at a very, very young age, and he's done it.
Maybe he could run a used car dealership somewhere.
Well, like Honest Larry from Three's Company. Huh?
Yeah, that's right.
But this kid, what was it? This kid's famous for just saying stupid things on the internet just to get a bunch of other leftists to rally behind him. One of the more famous lines, of course, was when he lectured people last year, saying, "You have no right to a gun. You're not a militia." When you're talking about your Second Amendment rights, you're talking about a state's right to have what is today the National Guard. The modern interpretation of 2A is a ridiculous fraud pushed for decades by the gun lobby. This is wrong on several accounts. It's uneducated, and it's basically absolutely phony. But he pushes on because he is fueled now by I guess a far left machine behind him.
CIA talking points, you mean?
Yeah, well, yeah, CIA and leftist talking points.
Okay, give us the guns. We'll give them all to Ukraine. Isn't that what they're saying now in Toronto?
In Toronto. Yeah, the mean streets of Toronto. Actually, I heard there was pretty mean streets there anyway, but that's another story for another day. Now this kid apparently wants to become the head of the Democrat Party, which
Yeah.
again, perfect, perfect guy, perfect. He's the perfect symbol for this party. It's woke, it's opportunist, and it's well annoying. He has all three of those rolled up into one.
I mean, the kid is completely bonkers. I mean, except for the Democrats are so insane, this kid wouldn't be given 20 seconds. And the media makes him into a darling and a hero and all the rest of it. You know, turn off. Don't buy the New York Times or the Washington Post unless you got an animal and you need the paper for other purposes.
Oh boy, or a bird. Yeah, bird definitely.
Or bird.
Or we're going fishing, maybe.
Yeah, right. Do we have a clip from Hogg, or is there?
Well, basically in this one, all he's doing is saying that there is telling us what we already know about the Democrat Party, but it might be worth listening to if you
Yeah,
want.
let's listen to it for a minute or two.
All right, let's pull it back here, and let's hear what he has to say.
And of course, a Park Bend school shooting survivor. David, good morning. I'm so grateful to have you.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about this. Are you thinking about running for this leadership post, and why?
Well, honestly, I'm considering it because I think that one, obviously, I think we need a new generation in the DNC. If this election has taught us nothing else, I think we need an intergenerational coalition as a party. But I've spent the past 2 years or so traveling around the country, working to elect young people and talking to everyday people, knocking on doors in every swing state that you can imagine, and some very red states as well, from starting out in Alabama to places like Texas and Virginia and everywhere in between. And the thing that I've realized more than anything is that we have a number of problems in the party, but I think the main one overall is that we would rather live in a comfortable delusion than an uncomfortable reality.
And again, basically, he's saying that the Democrats live in a bubble, which we all know, but this guy lives in a bubble.
Yeah, he is the bubble.
Yes.
I mean, this guy, he's going to be irrelevant in a couple of years, maybe in 20 seconds. Nobody will remember who he is. I mean, he's probably wants to have staying power, and he's probably going to be trying to be the next Obama or the next Clinton or the next Hitler or the next Stalin. I don't know which one he wants.
Well, he looks like he could be the next Adam Schiff.
Yeah, he's
except
bug-eyed enough.
Yeah. He'll get there.
Yeah, he may get there. Okay, let's this is the Democratic Party. They just destroyed themselves. I can't tell you how happy I am to see them go into oblivion. Just keep self-destructing. Keep listening to Obama. You know, maybe and try to figure out what happened to the chef in the meantime. I'd like to know about that. Maybe Larry Sinclair's got some hints. Let's ask him. Point is, this whole party is so corrupt, and the disgusting pardon that we've seen with Joe Biden with his son. Now this whole thing is disgusting. We need to get these. The Democrats are a money stealing machine. The whole reason they want Ukraine left in war is so that they can get more money to the arms dealers. They can get more money to the bankers. We can have perpetual war. They can keep sending money to Kiev. It'll get stolen. Biden is funding with the U.S. Treasury, his buddies, and himself and his family and his son. It is disgusting. And you cannot run an economy by just spending government money. It's a bubble. It's going to burst. You've got to get to where Trump is. You got to create jobs. You got to create business activity. Pensions are going to hell. The economy is going to hell with inflation. People, the Democrats don't get it. This election was not only a mandate or repudiation of them. This wanted to send them back to hell where they belong. They want to mutilate our children. These demons need to go to hell. And the faster they can go there, the better. They take Obama with them and Clinton with them, and the whole scumbag lot of them, which are nothing more but criminals. playing off the government with a scam where they want to make themselves into oligarchs, tell us they're going to be transhumans, and all the rest of us are worthless. And they can have the next pandemic roll down the pike and kill more of us with diseases. These people are committing crimes against humanity. And they may get by the U.S. law, but they are not going to get by the judgment of God. If they want to go to hell, I say to them, let's open the door and get the pitchforks, send them back down there. Now let's do something positive, because we got Tucker Carlson in Moscow again, and he's having an interview with the foreign minister of Russia, which is extremely important, because this is we're finally getting some lies corrected. The lies are our lies. We're the liars. We're the oppressors. We're the ones who are starting this war. We are the aggressors. Going back to Hillary Clinton stealing money for her Clinton Foundation with Pinochet, the oligarch, 2013, when she ran a private email server. I've written so many books about this. I've been working overtime to expose the deep state. Okay, now this interview is coming out, the full interview, and there's a preview of it on Zero Hedge today. The interview is with the Russian foreign minister, whose name is Sergei Lavrov, and the full interview was published yesterday night, Thursday night. The most important passages conveyed were directed by Lavrov towards Washington and its allies. He said, quote, we must understand that we would be ready to use any means not to allow them to succeed in what they call the strategic defeat of Russia. Okay, referencing Russia's recent use of the Oreshchesnik hypersonic missile, Lavrov expressed hope the Kiev's backers took, quote, seriously the new weapon, for which Russia says there's no defense. I believe Russia's right. I think they've achieved some first strike capabilities, which in nuclear theory is pretty frightening. And Lavrov made clear Moscow is ready to use any means necessary to defend itself. Quote, we are sending signals, and we hope that the last one, a couple of weeks ago, the signal with a new weapon called the Oreshchesnik, will be taken seriously. Okay, now we've got a clip from this, and it's a long, it begins with, is the U.S. at war with Russia? We're going to start there. And then at 12:56, Russia's message to the West through hypersonic weapons, 1747. Is there conversation happening between Russia and the U.S.? 23:18. There's a whole bunch of them here. We will go through them to some extent. But Chris, let's cue them up. Let's start with the clip at the beginning of the interview, when we're just getting into the issue of is the U.S. at war with Russia?
Minister Lavrov, thank you for doing this. Do you believe the United States and Russia are at war with each other right now?
I wouldn't say so. And in any case, this is not what we want. We would like to have normal relations with all our neighbors, of course, but generally with all countries or not, especially with the great country like the United States. President Putin repeatedly expressed his respect for the American people, for the American history, for the American achievements in the world. And we don't see any reason why Russia and the United States cannot cooperate for the sake of the universe.
But the United States is funding a conflict that you're involved in, of course, and now is allowing attacks on Russia itself. So that doesn't constitute war? We officially are not at war. But what is going on in Ukraine is some people call it hybrid war. I would call it hybrid war as well. But it is obvious that the Ukrainians would not be able to do what they're doing with long-range modern weapons without
direct participation of the American servicemen, and this is dangerous, no doubt about this. We don't want to aggravate the situation, but since ATACMS and other long-range weapons are being used against mainland Russia, as it were, we are sending signals, and we hope that the last one, couple of weeks ago, the signal with the new weapon system called the Reshnik,
Yes.
was taken seriously. However, we also know that some officials in the Pentagon and in other places, including NATO, they started saying in the last few days something like, well, NATO is a defensive alliance, but sometimes you can strike first because the attack is the best defense. Some others in Stratcom, I think Buchanan is his name, representative of Stratcom, he said something which allows for an eventuality of exchange of limited nuclear strikes. And this kind of threats are really worrying, because if they are following the logic which some Westerners have been pronouncing lately, that, well, don't believe that Russia has red lines, they announce their red lines, these red lines are being moved again and again and again, this is a very serious mistake.
Okay, let's stop right there. Now Lavrov is a seasoned foreign affairs diplomat. He's had, I believe, 4 decades of experience here. His English is obviously very good, and he's accomplished in not only understanding the art of diplomacy and the nature of international relations, but his ability to express himself. He's very precise, and he needs to be listened to carefully. Now, what he's saying is that, yes, technically Russia's at war. We've caused a state of war, in Russia's terms, with Russia by using these missiles and manufactured in the United States and fired by American servicemen and women, and also guided by American satellites. But Russia's choosing not to interpret it that way, because Russia does not want to go to war with the United States, and especially not in terms of President Trump being reelected, and in a matter of days he's going to come into office, and there's every anticipation by Russia that there's going to be a negotiated settlement. Trump has made that abundantly clear. So, from within Zelensky's office, somebody should cut off his cocaine supply, so he can start thinking. And I'm sure he's got enough money in his private bank accounts that he's stolen from the U.S. government and other places. So he's going to have a comfortable life as an entertainer. He can go around and entertain himself with all his money until he gets brought to justice. But the point is, we're the criminals in this case. These 2 independent republics in the eastern part of Ukraine, now occupied by Russia, have been Russian-speaking. They are not part of a unified Ukraine. The western part of Ukraine is allied with Germany. They were neo-Nazis. During the war, they were Nazis. They were part of the Waffen-SS brigades, and under Hitler, killed a lot of Jews. They were excused by Allen Dulles from being brought to justice in the Nuremberg trials. Allen Dulles, head of the CIA, whom I attribute as one of the major plotters for the Kennedy assassination after the Bay of Pigs, when Kennedy removed him from, that's my book on that, The Final Analysis, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, The Final Analysis. And by the way, I'll be on Coast to Coast AM on Monday, reviewing a number of my books on the deep state and how we've been working to establish the fact that the CIA has put us into a Truman Show. And we're seeing that here with all the lies you've been told about Ukraine. The truth is that the Ukrainian presidents before Zelensky were sending these neo-Nazi brigades, the Azov brigades, which have Nazi symbols in their flags, the black sun, the thunderbolt runes from the SS. And they were killing and harassing those in these eastern provinces who wanted to be independent states. They were also killing and harassing people affiliated with the Russian Orthodox Church. They don't believe in God. These are demons that we're funding. They're criminal demons. And they are perfect for the criminal demons in the Biden, Obama, Clinton network. All these criminals are all together, and the CIA, and they don't want their honeypot of the money laundering in Ukraine taken away from them. So they can continue running their drug operations, the CIA on the border, and with fentanyl from China, and continue expanding the sex trade, including children in the sex trade, of children being abducted on the border. This all got to stop. And, Lavrov knows the reality of it, and we know the reality of it. And we're making it abundantly clear. And Donald Trump knows the reality of it. Now, there's more on this interview that I want to get into because we're having our first look at it. So at 12:56, Chris, we'll advance to that. Let's go to the discussion about Russia's message to the West through hypersonic missiles. And I'm also going to give you the version of this on X. I'm going to put it in chat because it may be a little bit easier to pull some of these clips up from X than from Zero Hedge. So there it is from X. But let's go to 12:56 and see if we can play that clip about the message that these hypersonic weapons have communicated.
The right of their own people.
I want to go back to what you said a moment ago about the introduction or the unveiling of the hypersonic weapons system that you said was the signal to the West. What signal exactly? I think many Americans are not even aware that this happened. What message were you sending by showing it to the world?
Well, the message is that you, the United States, and the allies of the United States, who also provide this long-range weapons to the Kyiv regime, they must understand that we would be ready to use any means not to allow them to succeed in what they call strategic defeat of Russia. They fight for keeping their hegemony over the world, on any country, any region, any continent. We fight for our legitimate security interests. They say, for example, 1991 borders. Lindsey Graham, who visited some time ago Zelensky for another talk, he bluntly, in presence of Zelensky, I think, said that Ukraine is very rich with rare earth metals, and we cannot leave this richness to the Russians. We must take it. We fight, so they fight for the regime which is ready to sell or to give to the West all the natural and human resources. We fight for the people who have been living on these lands, whose ancestors were actually developing those lands, building cities, building factories for centuries and centuries. We care about people, not about natural resources, which somebody in the United States would like to keep and to have Ukrainians just as servants sitting on these natural resources. So the message which we wanted to sell by testing in real action this hypersonic system is that we will be ready to do anything to defend our legitimate interest. We hate even to think about war with the United States, which will take nuclear character. Our military doctrine says that the most important thing is to avoid a nuclear war. And it was us, by the way, who initiated in January 2022 the message, the joint statement by the leaders of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, saying that we will do anything to avoid confrontation between us, acknowledging and respecting each other's security interest and concerns.
Okay, let's stop right. We stop right there. The what he's saying is very basic. That the whole interest that we have in Ukraine is greed, money, war. Those minerals are used for electric vehicles, which are a worthless idea. It's a technology that doesn't work. It's not as efficient as hydrocarbon fuel engines. Internal combustion engines are far superior. Diesel engines are far superior to electric vehicles. These are bad ideas of the nutty Democrats who are Marxists and don't mind exploiting people because they have no value in people. Now, what Lavrov is saying is that he's not going into detail, but he knows that BlackRock and State Street and all these trillion-dollar investment funds have been buying up the farms. They want to control the natural resources. They don't mind the war going on because they know they'll get the contract to rebuild Ukraine. While the war is going on, they got money laundering going on, and they're grabbing up all the assets. And what Lavrov is saying is that this is a fundamental destruction of a nation that has been productive for people to live and prosper, except for all the wars that come through Ukraine. That these are productive people, and they do have great resources. So the world's always coveted these resources back 1,000 years. It's why there's been so many wars in Ukraine, and we don't have any clue because we're not taught history anymore in our schools. We're taught CIA propaganda. Okay, now there's a couple more parts of this I think are also really important. At 1747, into this, there's a discussion of whether there's back channeling going on between Russia and the United States. Now, this is really important because you want to settle these things. You've got to settle these things with back channeling so you can set up communications. And in a very private ways, how Jack Kennedy solved the Cuban Missile Crisis by back channeling to Nikita Khrushchev. And if you don't have these back channels, your military takes over and they push you to go to war. And, the oligarchs push you to go to war, and the Biden criminals and the Obama criminals and the Clinton criminals push you to go to war so they can make money. Let's hear what Lavrov says. And I want you also to study the balanced tone of Lavrov's comments, that he's, being polite, being properly diplomatic, but he's saying very tough things. He's saying
the fact that we're having a conversation about a potential nuclear exchange and it's real is remarkable. Not something I thought I'd ever see, and it raises the question: how much back channel dialogue is there between Russia and the United States? Has there been for the last 2.5 years? Is there any conversation ongoing?
There are several channels, but mostly on exchange of people who served terms in Russia and in the United States. There were several swaps. There are also channels which are not advertised or publicized, but basically the Americans send through these channels the same message which they send publicly. You have to stop. You have to accept the way which will be based on the Ukrainian needs and Ukrainian position. They support this absolutely pointless peace formula by Zelensky, which was additioned recently by Victory Plan. They held several series of meetings, Copenhagen format, Bürgenstock, what have you, and they brag that next year, first half of next year, they will convene another conference, and they will graciously invite Russia that time, and then Russia would be presented an ultimatum. All this is seriously repeated through various confidential channels. Now we hear something different. including Zelensky's statements that we can stop now at the line of engagement, line of contact. The Ukrainian government will be admitted to NATO, but NATO guarantees at this stage would cover only the territory controlled by the government, and the rest would be subject to negotiations. But the end result of these negotiations must be total withdrawal of Russia from Russian soil, basically.
But just if I can just go back.
Leaving Russian people to the Nazist regime, which exterminated all the rights of the Russian and Russian-speaking citizens of their own country.
If I can just go back to the question of nuclear exchange. So there is no mechanism by which the leaders of Russia and the United States can speak to each other to avoid the kind of misunderstanding that could kill hundreds of millions of people.
No. We have this channel, which is automatically engaged when ballistic missile launch is taking place. As regards this Oreshnik hypersonic ballistic missile, mid-range ballistic missile, 30 minutes in advance, this system sent the message to the United States, and they knew that this was the case, and that they don't mistake it for anything bigger and real dangerous.
Okay, we can stop with it right there. They again, he's making the point that the back channeling has all been bluster. You know, this is a Biden. If Biden had won, we'd go to nuclear war. That's where we were headed. And NATO would have been happy to go to nuclear war. They're depopulationists. They want to go to this new world order. They want to have the transhumanists run the country and the world. Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, all these criminals, they want to be in charge. These guys need to go to hell. They're demon, they're evil. They'll mutilate children, they'll kill people. They talk about nuclear war as if it's, you know, a walk in the park. Now, Lavrov is making it clear that all of this is rejected by Russia, and none of that's going to happen. And that without the United States strength and without the United States going to nuclear war, that there's no way Russia's going to be dislodged. And if the United States wants to go to nuclear war, Russia's in, because Russia's not going to be backing down from defending Russian security, the Russian nation, because we want to grab the resources in Ukraine for Lindsey Graham. I hope Lindsey Graham's boyfriend is doing fine wherever he may be in the afterlife. So there we go forward with all that we're dealing with here. And a new sheriff is in town. And Donald Trump is sending different signals. And Zelensky has actually begun to make it clear that he's, you know, he knows he's going to have to end the war now. And so his readjustment of thinking is, how does he save his behind and his money and his cocaine and his buddies and his girlfriends and boyfriends and his band and his guitar to go off in the sunset and not be incarcerated as an international criminal, killing millions of people over this stupid war. Okay, now what Lavrov is saying is that these people in the eastern provinces, Russian-speaking provinces, were seriously being oppressed by the Nazis in the West. Now, that's not been reported, but it's true. Okay, now there's a couple more points of this I want to cover before we're done. Let's go to the Boris Johnson wants the war to continue. That's another one we've known and we reported on, so we're not going to focus on that here. But I want to do 45-43, the sanctions on Russia, because this is going to be having to relieve Russia on the sanctions. That's going to have to be part of the negotiations. And also then we'll do 56-31, which is the Chinese-Russian alliance. So, Chris, if we can do 45-43, let's hear about the sanctions on Russia.
Dropping sanctions against Russia be a condition?
I would say probably many people in Russia would like to make it a condition. but the more we live under sanctions, the more we understand that it is better to rely on yourself and to develop mechanisms, to develop platforms for cooperation with normal countries who are not unfriendly to you, and don't mix economic interest and policies, and especially politics. And we learned a lot after the sanctions started. Sanctions started under Obama. They continued in a very big way under first term of Trump. And these sanctions under the Biden administration are absolutely unprecedented. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, you know. And
Well, but it also just drives
they would be never kill us, so they are making us stronger.
and driving Russia east. And so the vision that I think sane policymakers in Washington had 20 years ago is, why not bring Russia into a Western bloc, sort of as a balance against the rising east? But it doesn't seem like that. Do you think that's still possible?
I don't think so. Recently, Putin was speaking at Valdai Club. Politologists and experts. He said we would never be back at the situation of early 2022. That's when he realized for himself, apparently, not only he, but he spoke publicly about this, that all attempts to be on equal terms with the West have failed. It started
Okay, we can stop it here.
After the demise of the Soviet Union.
What he's saying is that the Democratic Party has had this hatred of Russia since the fall of the Berlin Wall, when Russia renounced communism. The Democrats are a communist party. Let's just make no doubt about that. They're rapidly becoming a treasonous party, and wanting this new world order. And Lavrov is saying, look, we can't work with this. Okay, now, and we're not going to go back to trusting it. So they're moving towards the BRICS, and they're going to form their own economic independent structure on an emerging economy. And it's going to be very strong. It may not be very strong today, but it's going to be very strong. And it's going to be a challenge directly to the United States, because we're becoming weak. We've debased the dollar. Again, another form of stealing. We do all this deficit spending, which is stolen. Cylindrol, Obama's buddies gets paydays. You know, Biden does the Deficit Reduction Act, and we do more energy programs, and all Biden's buddies get paydays. Money stolen, projects fail, nobody goes to jail. Corruption, corruption, corruption. And in the meantime, the State Department is pursuing policies to be aggressive against Russia and Ukraine, to expand Russia to the NATO, to the borders with Russia, put CIA bases on the border with Russia, put Wuhan labs in the they want war, they want disease, they want pestilence, they want destruction. The Democrats and the State Department and the CIA and this new world order. And with Trump's win, it's got to come to an end. But Russia's not going to come around day one. They're going to remain very suspicious and very, very standoffish until they're assured, and they'll never go back to where they were in 2022, thinking they can trust the United States again. They're going to move. Let's listen to this one last 5631. And there's a couple more clips that maybe we should really try to listen to a little bit, but let's do 5631 about the Chinese-Russian alliance. And here's thinking on where we are with Chinese-Russia.
It is the way that big countries behave. I mean, there are certain orbits, and now it's BRICS versus NATO, US versus China. And it sounds like you're saying the Russian-Chinese alliance is permanent.
Well, we are neighbors. We are neighbors,
of course.
And geography is very important.
But you're also neighbors with Western Europe. You're part of it, in effect.
Well, through Ukraine, and the Western Europe wants to come to our borders. And there were plans that, were discussed almost openly to put British naval bases on the Sea of
Yes.
Azov. Crimea was eyed, dreaming about creating NATO base in Crimea, and so on and so forth. We want to, look, we have been very friendly with Finland, for example. Overnight, the Finns came back to early years of preparation for World War II, when they were best allies of Hitler, and all this neutrality, all this friendship, going to sauna together, playing hockey together, all this disappeared overnight. So maybe this was deep in their hearts, and the neutrality was burdening them, and niceties were burdening for them. I don't know.
That's totally possible. Can you negotiate with Zelensky? You've pointed out that he has exceeded his term. He's not, democratically elected president of Ukraine anymore. So do you consider him a suitable partner for negotiations?
Putin addressed this issue as well, many times. In September 2022, during the first year of the special operation, Zelensky, in his conviction that he would be dictating the terms of the situation also to the West, he signed a decree prohibiting any negotiations with Putin's government. And
Okay, we can stop here.
during-
We can stop here. He's basically saying Zelensky's a fool. He's like an amateur. He's a actor. He's a musician. He's a stooge. It's like Biden. He was made to fill the position, although he's not in charge. And then the next two sections, he basically says who's in charge of foreign policy decisions in the United States. We'll listen to a couple of seconds of that, one at 1:02:18. And then he ends by saying that Biden is pushing the U.S. to nuclear war before Trump takes office. So he's setting the stage to get rid of Biden, get rid of Obama, get rid of Clinton, hope that we take care of them. Finland's important because Finland is the access to the Atlantic for Russia. Russia's landlocked to the Atlantic. It get to it through Finland, through the Baltic Sea, through Ukraine to the Black Sea, out into the Mediterranean. And Russia needs that access. And so, therefore, that's been World War II. Before World War II started during the 1939, before the invasion of Russia, when the alliance was made between Hitler and Stalin to, not to go to war with each other, Russia moved into Finland and they moved into Ukraine. Russia did not do very well in Finland. And the Finnish people wanted to have had this enmity against Russia and were closely aligned with the Nazis. And Lavrov knows this history. I doubt if 1 in 1,000 Americans know the history. Okay, and the last thing, let's just play a couple seconds of 1:13:08, his thoughts on Trump. So I think that's really another key point of this interview. So let's play that, Chris, and we'll end with that one.
It's a complicated game. Many actors are involved, and I hope that the contacts which we are planning for this week will help stabilize the situation.
What do you think of Donald Trump?
I met him several times when he was having meetings with Putin, and when he received me twice, I think, in the Oval Office when I was visiting for bilateral talks. Well, I think he's a very strong person, a person who wants results, who doesn't like procrastination on anything. And this is my impression. He's very friendly in discussions, but this does not mean that that he is pro-Russian, as some people try to present him. The amount of sanctions we received under the Trump administration was very, very, very big. And we respect any choice which is made by the people when they vote. We respect the choice of American people, and we are open, as Putin said, we are open to contacts with, we have been open all along with the current administration. And we hope that when Donald Trump is inaugurated, we will understand what the ball, as Putin said, is on this side. We never severed our contacts, our ties in economy, trade, on security, on anything.
And my final question is, how sincerely worried are you about an escalation and conflict between Russia and the United States, knowing what you do?
Well, we started with this question, more or less.
It seems the central question.
Yes, and the Europeans say that it's not, they whisper to each other that it is not for Zelensky to dictate the terms of the deal, it's for the US and Russia. I don't think we should be presenting our relations as, two guys decide for everybody. Not at all. It is not our style. We prefer the manners which dominate in BRICS, in Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where the UN Charter principle of sovereign equality of states is really embodied. The US is not used to respect sovereign equality of states.
Okay, we can quit right
States.
here. He's basically saying that Trump is not a pushover, and he's not pro-Russian. He's pro-United States. He's America first, and Russia understands that. So Russia's willing to come to a deal, but the deal's got to respect the national interests of Ukraine as well as national interests of the two provinces that are now liberated by the Russian army, which he considers now to be properly out of the control of the Nazi Kiev regime. And I think that's appropriate. And any regime like Zelensky that goes in and starts killing Russian Orthodox priests and believers and suppressing the church is not going to be in favor with me. And they're going to be properly categorized as Nazis and anti-Christian. So the realities are being dealt with by Lavrov, and Lavrov is the bottom line is these two provinces are not going back to Ukraine. Now, there's other things that are going to happen, and as a consequence of this war, it's clear that the BRICS nations are now in place and are going to be pursued, and it's going to be pursued in union with the Shanghai Cooperation League, which is the league China has formed, and China and Russia are going to seek independent economic development of that part of the world. If you want to call Eurasia or that whole complex of countries from Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan, all the stands, all the way through the Indian subcontinent into China, Southeast Asia, being built up as a viable economic activity area that could rival the West. Now, that's not going to happen immediately. But again, it's now that voyage has been launched. That's going to be launched, Lavrov is saying, with respect to the individual nations. Now, whether that persists or not over time, I don't know. But it is a fundamentally different vision, and it is one that is not accepting American hegemony as the reality of the coming world. Is going to be multipolar. It's going to be the United States, Russia, China. We're going to have to coexist. Chris, any final comments? And then we're going to wrap up.
Well, you see it right here. And there are always different sides to a story, not just two, but a lot more. And you can find, and Tucker Carlson is not afraid to go find out the Russian point of view, which is really funny. He's been criticized for this over the last year or so, but for decades, we had journalists a long time ago that would seek out other points of view when it came to conflict and war and maybe international quarrels, international conflict, if that would be. But it's non-existent today, or virtually non-existent. And when somebody actually goes out and does it, it's a problem. And the other thing is, yes, it would still be very funny if David Hogg becomes the DNC chair,
Yeah,
because all
well,
this will fall right into place.
yeah, well, DNC can get on a barge and float out to the Atlantic.
Well, that's what it will do if this guy runs things. He's doing it for himself. He's still in his 20s.
Let's not talk about him anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Let's wrap it up in the sense that I see that the adults are coming into the room, and these demon children are going to be corralled and punished severely by us and by God, I believe. In the end, God always wins. You can see it here. The hand of God is at work. And in the end, God always wins, and God will win here too. There will be a judgment of God. We will pay for having killed so many children under Roe v. Wade in the womb, chopping into pieces. We will pay for taking God out of our schools, out of our communities. But I think things are now moving in the direction of God. And the election of Donald Trump is an historical, important event, a turning point, which we must not lose the opportunity here to restore America, restore God, and return to traditional values. That's what we're fighting for, and that's what we're going to continue to fight for. Private enterprise and equal opportunity, not equal result, not redistribution of income, not these communist ideas, not gender transition, not that we don't know who a woman is, not that we're going to have, bathrooms where men can go in the women's bathrooms and play in the women's sports. It's all nonsense. It's all satanic idiocy. And calling what the Democrats want to do, stealing elections, democracy, language perversion. Go read my book on the truth about neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy, because I've really architected how this evil political philosophy is developed. Dr. Jerome Corsi, today, I want to end one last thing. What's emerging now is going to be, once Trump takes office, we're going to have an economic crash of major proportions. And I know you may not believe me, but get a free copy of this book, The Coming Global Crash, and Create an Historic Gold Rush. I'm also doing an updated paper on the BRICS for Swiss America. Very close to Swiss America and working with them very closely. And we'll be working even more closely in 2025. Toll-free number is 1-800-519-6862. I'm going to set up a facility for you to get self-directed IRAs where you can get gold and silver through Swiss America. They'll take care of the entire process. You don't have to put all your IRAs in gold and silver, but I want you to put some into it. Because right now you've got a buying opportunity with gold and silver. They're under $2,700 now, $2,652 an ounce on gold and $31.41 an ounce on silver. But the stock market, as we go into the end of the year, I think, is not going to continue rallying as hard as it has been. So the Dow Jones today, on December 6, 2024, is down almost 250 points. And again, you're going to see the stock market have rapid decline. And if you continue to keep your money in stocks and bonds, and most of you have brokerage accounts or a mutual fund IRA, and you're in the stock market whether you know it or not, and that stock market corrects, you could lose 10,000 points in a matter of a few days. Get into gold and silver, because gold will balance that. Put at least some of your holdings in gold and silver. We can accomplish that through a Swiss America IRA, self-directed IRA, which they will put in place for you in completely legal fashion. All you have to do is sign some documents. Your gold and silver and platinum will be held in a depository in Delaware that is a insured depository. You'll have a Lloyd's of London contract that ensures the value of your gold and silver will be there for you. please contact Swiss Americans. A lot on the website about it. We'll be doing increasing amounts about this over the coming weeks and months in 2025. Dr. Jerome R. Corsi, thank you for joining us. TheTruthCentral.com. We'll be back next week. God bless.